that there are a lot of low-risk migrants who don't have a criminal background who are also being sent. Are you thinking about this differently now?
No, they're going to be brought back to their countries. And with some persuasion, every one of those countries, everyone in the, as you know, every country is taking the people back. So some of them are going to be brought back to, many of them, any of them that are low risk, as you say, are going to be brought back to their...
I have to reiterate what I said both before and after Donald Trump's recent disastrous press conference. Whenever he speaks, something is bound to go wrong, and that's precisely what happened at a press conference with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. The conference was supposedly about the war in Ukraine and peace talks, which Zelensky is reportedly refusing to participate in because Donald Trump is preventing him from doing so. Therefore, I'm not sure how those are truly peace talks. No, Trump is merely acting as a puppet for Vladimir Putin, as you might anticipate. When he was criticized for that, he became somewhat emotional, as Donald Trump frequently does, and began attacking a reporter in a larger news organization. But before we get into that meltdown and those threats from Donald Trump, of course, we have to see what he had to say about Ukraine. Before we do that, though, I would like to ask you to quickly like this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, hit the subscribe button. It really means a lot to me right now.
Who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen, not even close, since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago without the loss of much land, very little land, without the loss of any lives, and without the loss of cities that are just laying on their sides. You have those magnificent golden domes that are shattered, will never be replaced. You can't replace them. 1,000-year-old domes that are so beautiful, you can't replace that. A whole civilization has changed because of what. So when they're worried about not being seated, you mean somebody that should have gone in and made a deal a long time ago?
Don't know what this implies. For 3 years they have been seated at the table. Do you mean providing the assistance that our ally, whom Joe Biden brought the world together to support, needed to have a seat at the table and defending against Vladimir Putin's violent invasion? What Trump is trying to do is beyond me. I'm trying to say this. It's obvious that he has been angry with Zelensky lately. For this reason, he is interrupting him during his conversation with Saudi Arabia and Vladimir Putin, of all places. That's not surprising, but Trump's remarks here were part of the Kremlin talking points.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. So many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, it's been a long time since we've had an election. That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries.
Don't know what this implies. For 3 years they have been seated at the table. Do you mean providing the assistance that our ally, whom Joe Biden brought the world together to support, needed to have a seat at the table and defending against Vladimir Putin's violent invasion? What Trump is trying to do is beyond me. I'm trying to say this. It's obvious that he has been angry with Zelensky lately. For this reason, he is interrupting him during his conversation with Saudi Arabia and Vladimir Putin, of all places. That's not surprising, but Trump's remarks here were part of the Kremlin talking points.
To reconsider the restrictions on the Associated Press. And secondly, some of your advisors are concerned with the Associated Press's style guide, using language and giving guidance to not use words like illegal immigrant or to use phrases like gender-affirming care. And they're concerned about that being an encroaching amount of liberalism in the way in which the press writes about things. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I do think that some of the phrases that they want to use are ridiculous, and I think, frankly, they become obsolete, especially in the last 3 weeks, because many things have happened in the last 3 weeks. And I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain phrases like that, and I guess some are okay, but many aren't, but the Associated Press just refuses to go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that. But only the essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be.
Once again, we see Trump threatening the Associated Press, going after their reporters and really just kind of yelling at that reporter who asked him a very fair question about why the free speech president and the free speech absolutist and Elon Musk, how he has described himself, are so cool with censorship. We just made a video about this, but Elon Musk has called for the entire staff of 60 Minutes to have a very long prison sentence. First of all, I don't know what that means. I also don't know how that supports free speech, but neither do they. That's kind of the entire point of their stick, is it's lying, it's OC, it's nonsense coming out of their mouths at all times. And it of course continued when Donald Trump was asked about a very important story, right? Now, if Elon Musk lied on his affidavit criminal conduct, by the way, about whether he actually works for the government or not, if he's a consultant, if he's a special advisor to the presidency, if he's heading up Doge, what did Donald Trump have to say?
Elon Musk is not a Doge employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today
Well, Elon
what
Musk,
his exact role is there?
Yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So, you could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want. But he's a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things I just said. Just write it down, just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a bigger deal because people are dying by the thousands a week. Thousands.
Okay, that was a bunch of then. I have no idea what that response was. Trump is obviously attempting to conflate Elon with himself. I don't want to acknowledge him. I'm sorry to do that. There are two options here, and I'm not sure if this is a bad thing to say, but it's like 40 check. If Trump, Elon Musk is a billionaire and Trump are billionaires, so it's possible that Trump enjoys being around him. I don't understand why anyone would want to spend time with Elon Musk, but it is a real possibility, which is absurd. Or he is aware of Elon's declining popularity. He is aware of all the issues he has brought about, and he has undoubtedly assisted Trump in achieving his objective of firing as many civil servants who value public service as possible in order to install his stooges or supporters in office. He knows that eventually he can just stab Elon and put him under the bus, and that is exactly what Project 2025 is about. He stated that he was not leading Doge because, as we have discussed previously, Elon's involvement with that organization and all of his recent decisions, particularly those pertaining to Social Security, which Trump was in charge of, are extremely unpopular.
We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent, but if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old. So it's a very positive thing. How about